Let me share with you a quote by John Wineland, who was a writer, teacher, and speaker. He was actually mentored by David Deida, who wrote the now famous The Way of the Superior Man. So in his book, From the Core, John Wineland states, "When a primarily masculine partner overindulges in their own emotions without creating structure to hold it, they will invariably compete with the emotionality of the feminine partner." Let me ask you something. Have you ever had an argument with your wife where you guys are basically just fighting for emotional validation? It's like, you always do this, well, you always do this, well, that's only because you did this, and that's only because you do that, and it's just this constant sort of validate my needs, no, you validate my needs, no, you validate, and it just goes on and on and on, right? She just doesn't get where you're coming from, and she keeps saying you don't get where she's coming from. And then you wind up saying something you didn't really mean, but that's only because you were pissed off and frustrated and resentful and really annoyed of all the hurtful things that she said. Well, in this video, I'm going to teach you my 3-step formula that's helped hundreds of men create emotional safety and trust within their relationships without having to apologize and say sorry. And the 3rd step in the formula is my personal favorite because, well, it's like the nail in the coffin to creating emotional safety, and I've seen it work hundreds of times when I was practicing as a couples counselor. And no, it's not a manipulation tool or a tactic that you just get off the internet, and I've got a therapy background, so I really want to just highlight that for you. It's something that I feel can help you create genuineness and authenticity in your relationship, so don't miss out on step number 3. Okay, so what could she possibly mean when she says that you don't make her feel safe? You're not an aggressive guy. If anything, you're probably a nice guy, right? You bend over backwards trying to provide for your wife and your children. You're burnt out from work, and yet when you have to talk about something difficult with your wife, she says she can't trust you and that you don't make her feel safe. What? So you're left feeling burnt out and unappreciated, and you probably feel like she's speaking an entirely different language, right? Well, when you hear the word safety, you're probably thinking violence. But violence is the end of the spectrum, a spectrum that starts all the way down to the littlest of things. Let me give you an example from a client of mine. So he'd signed up to our program about 2 weeks prior to discussing this. And in our coaching call, we discussed what was resonating with him. He said his biggest area that needed improving was his ability to maintain the frame. He said he did really well in one conversation, but then awfully in the next. He said that he and his wife had been arguing quite frequently for months about whether to move house or not. She wanted to move because she felt that their neighborhood was unsafe, whereas he didn't really agree. And every time she brought it up, my client would dismiss her fears and concerns by proving to her, with logic, why she was wrong. He's like, "We have cameras outside, it's totally fine. I've got a baseball bat, there's nothing for you to worry about." And this was the wrong move. See, logically that stuff makes sense, but emotionally it's totally irrelevant. And after a bit of coaching, he was able to maintain the frame by working hard on not fixing her emotions, but simply being with them. So he would say things like, "All those times I tried to show you why this is a safe neighborhood, I wasn't paying attention to the simple fact that you were feeling scared in that moment. I see that now, and I want you to know that you can always talk to me." Well, I was pumped. I was like, "Man, you're killing this." But see, then he quickly cut me off and he told me about the second part of the conversation. So they're chatting, and she all of a sudden brings up the house conversation. But this time, he's not centered and calm because he's just come home from work. So he escalates it slightly, not by meaning to, but by saying, "We just spoke about this last night. I thought it was all good." And then she escalates it, not by meaning to, because again, she's feeling unsafe. Before you know it, they're both saying things they don't mean. And at one point, he actually even told her that she should go and speak to someone because he was concerned about her mental health. Does that sound familiar to you? So here's the rub, right? So both my client and his wife in the second conversation were depolarized. They were both in their feminine energy. Feminine energy is about bonding, nurturing, opening up to receive love and affection, validation, and being close and intimate. When she has something that she needs to get off her chest, she is requesting that you hold the space, the masculine frame or the structure to receive her truth. Now, what she says might hurt, but remember what she's asking of you. She's saying, "Don't worry too much about what I'm saying. Focus instead on how I'm feeling in this moment. Just be here with me in this emotion." That's why step number 2 in our safety formula is repolarization. You see, she doesn't need you to solve her problems or take the pain away. She's capable. She wants you to provide a space for her to express herself without shutting her down, dismissing her, or trying to solve her problems with logic. Masculine energy is your go energy. It's about breaking down barriers and obstacles, overcoming challenges, creating structures, and being disciplined. Masculine energy, when it comes to communication, creates the structure and holds space for the feminine to flow in between. Too much masculine energy, so too much structure and rigidity, and no conversations will occur. Distance will ensue and the flow of the river will kind of dry up, right? But too much feminine energy on the other side, too much emotional dumping, and nothing productive gets achieved. We need a yin and yang. We need to find the balance. So if you're holding the structure while she expresses her emotions, this is not your time to be heard or validated. Communication is an art. It's a yin and a yang. One holds the structure and the other expresses themselves. But don't feel that just because you're always a man that you always need to play the masculine role. Part of being a real man is knowing what your needs are and how to get them met. So this will sometimes, of course, mean asking your wife if she can hold space for you. You have feelings too, remember? And they're just as valid as hers. So what does this have to do with creating emotional safety in your relations? I totally understand it, but it's a good question. So here's the secret sauce. If you're in control of your emotions and you know how to communicate your inner world to her, she'll feel safe with you. She'll be able to trust you because you're not the type of guy who is emotionally volatile, calm one moment, yelling and aggressive the next, or calm one moment, but then needy and moody or resentful the next. Remember, be the shore. Let her be the waves crashing in and out. But Tom, I have feelings too, and sometimes she can really get to me. Are you telling me just to suppress my emotions and that I need to be calm all the time? Of course I'm not saying that. Part of being self-aware means knowing your limits. The key is creating structure around and expressing your emotions so that you don't blast her, like a friend or a colleague or a boss, out of nowhere. Okay, so here's an example of creating structure around your emotional needs. Honey, do you have time tonight when I come home from work to hold space for me whilst I vent about something that happened today? I just could use sort of 5 minutes. Then I want you to honor her response. If she does have the time, great. If she doesn't, book in a time with her. And here's another example of what creating emotional safety looks like whilst also being able to express your own emotions. So let's say you guys are having an argument, right? You can say, honey, I see you're really angry right now and I want to validate that for you. I'm actually feeling my anger rising too. So I think I'm gonna have to take 15 minutes. But then I really want us to come back to this conversation because I can see you have some really important things that you need to tell me. Here's a rub. If you can't nurture your own emotions, how do you expect to tend to hers? In fact, why should she allow you to? When she says she doesn't feel safe, this can also mean feeling safe to be honest with you, which means saying things that will hurt you, but you need to think about are gifts for your growth. Remember, a river embankment will slowly be eroded over time by the water that flows on it. In other words, safety takes time to build. Let me paint a picture with this scene from The Horse Whisperer with Robert Redford and Scarlett Johansson. So, the horse Pilgrim has been heavily traumatized and as a result trusts no one. Robert Redford, who is the Horse Whisperer, was able to effectively create safety by remaining consistently calm. And this is the major point when it comes to safety, that no matter what kind of day your wife has had, she knows that when she comes home, she will always get the same version of you, calm and present. You have to take responsibility for getting yourself to that place. So in the clip, you can see how it took hours and hours before Pilgrim approached Robert Redford. Safety is built on consistency. Robert didn't move at all. He was centered. He sat there in the field for hours. So what this tells me is that you've got to work on yourself forever. You've got to fall in love with the work and self-development. Do whatever you need to do to be consistently calm. See, that might mean changing your work structure, working out more, developing a keen sense of purpose, or being more creative. Whatever it is, right? But by doing what you love to do first and prioritizing your highest needs, you can then provide the safest possible container for your wife to feel safe with you, because she knows she's always going to get the same version of you. Okay, so this brings me to my third and final, and in my opinion, nail in the coffin, most important point. So I'm really happy that you stuck around to the end, all right? This is massive. And I bet it's something you probably intuitively know, but don't quite have the words for. And this is why number 3 is radical honesty in this 3-step formula. You see, I heard someone say once that You can only love someone to the degree that you're honest with them. And to me, that tells me that love and honesty are somehow related, right? It tells me that if you're willing to go there with someone and expose the complete and entire and amazing and awful truth of who you are, and to have someone still hold space and accept you for that, then so much trust and so much safety can build and can be built from that, because they know everything about you and you know everything about them. But this is why relationships and love is a verb. Love is a giving to, not a falling in, as my favorite writer Irvin Yalom states. If we are going to go there with someone and expect them to trust us and to feel safe with us, then we need to give them the complete and entire truth of who we are. Because if we don't, they're not going to know who we are. So how can we expect them to feel safe with us? They don't even know who we are. If you become courageously truthful with your wife, she'll be able to trust you more than she ever has, and this will massively increase the safety that she feels with you. And if you feel you might need a bit more personalized help with all this sort of stuff, then click the link below, book in a time with our marriage evaluation team. They're experts and they'll clearly identify what caused your current marriage situation and tell you exactly what you need to do to either improve your marriage or prevent divorce and win her back. Either if you're near divorce or your wife has already moved out, or perhaps if you have too. All right, until next time, my man.